I'm going live. I'm not waiting on you, camera. You better hurry up, sister.
I'm hurrying.
I'm live,
Trying to
baby.
go live.
That's live, baby.
You know what? We're live too. So
Well, I was live first.
How about that? How about
Catch you live. How about that?
How about that? Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollywood Matrimony Live.
10 minutes late.
We'll be talking about some movies and things, but in the meantime, please make sure you check out our website, hollywoodmatrimony.com. Don't forget to check out the contest tab at the top because there are still free things being given away. The mail is still running so far. Thank you for watching us right now on YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to follow us also on Instagram and the Twitter at Hollywood Matter, MATR. What you got? All right, so I get to talk about all the movies I love.
Oh, wow. That show's going to just get canceled today.
Luckily, no one can cancel us.
Well, we got 2 Blu-ray movies, and then we got a Netflix documentary.
Yes.
What would you like to talk about first?
Very excited. Let me turn off my sound.
What would you like to talk about first, madame?
Yeah, what should we talking about? Someone said we're running on Indian Standard Time. We are.
Who could that have been?
That's our friend. All right, so let's talk in the order in which we saw them. I think that's always good.
Okay.
So first, what did we see? I don't know.
I can tell you, but it's funnier watching you look confused. The documentary.
We're going to talk about this movie on Netflix. It's very interesting. It's Netflix, right?
Yeah, what's it called?
It's called LA Originals. And it follows kind of the life and times. A career, if you will, of a cartoon guy, Mr. Cartoon, who's a tattoo artist. But he actually was an artist, graffiti artist, an airbrush painter, and tattooist.
And a martial artist.
So kind of like this dude. And then also the life and times of the other guy, and his name is something. I just forgot.
I don't know. He is a photographer.
He's the photographer. And it's actually really interesting. Had no idea any of these people were existing.
I had heard of Mr. Cartoon before, and it was probably via some of the hip hop culture. Because these two guys were, if you've ever seen 90% of the hip hop, their posters, their artwork, or photos or shots from their concerts or their tattoos themselves, it was probably done by these people. They had teamed up and I didn't know they worked together. I didn't know it was 2 people that were together. I knew about the tattoos, and but they basically kind of teamed up, formed a studio, and it became like this go-to place of tattooing and photography and video shoots and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And then the Esteban guy was the photographer guy who just kind of unwittingly became a tour manager, but then became like the manager of several different tours and the photographer.
And he was kind of an unofficial member of Cypress Hill.
Yeah.
You know, because he would DJ some.
Just interestingly, you know, he was the only person there or on the stage or backstage with the camera. So he's the one that captured a lot of its interesting, you know, backstage photos and history of these different bands. And then at the same time,
and not just rap, it was
it's everything.
The photography and the tattoo stuff went into Slash and Justin Bieber and all these different people that had gotten work done and worked on stuff. And the movie's not just about them either. It's about the LA culture and the gangs, because they did a lot of stuff for gangbangers and stuff too. And it was interesting seeing kind of how deep their stuff went, and how not only were there drug situations and things like this, but the gang violence and the cultures, and also the kind of cleaning up of LA affected their livelihood.
Yeah.
You know, by taking something that really you would look at and think it needs to be rebuilt or it needs to be fixed, took away what made them on some levels.
And then at the end, I felt bad for the Esteban photographer dude, because it's like he didn't really have anything to fall back on. I mean, that was his thing. And so he gets back, and now LA's been beautified and it's been changed, and he didn't really have anywhere to go. The other guy was a little bit smarter because he brought property. So he has his own property that no one's going to take away from him. you know, and he has all his classic cars and he's still doing work. And it's just really interesting to see how that all transpired. That's a big word.
Yeah, it was cool. As someone who grew up with hip hop culture and being obsessed with it, and to this day still following it very heavily, but seeing so many things that I wasn't aware of. There was this one person, you know, with the artwork, especially like all massive Cypress Hill fan, and all their artwork and the things on their albums and imagery and stuff. Knowing this one guy did all of that,
yeah,
and designed stuff on their stage, and then seeing photos that were taken that I had seen hundreds and thousands of times, and then realized, oh my God, it was the same. And all of this was connected, and not knowing, you know. And I remember in some like concert film stuff or documentaries about different artists, like musicians, I remember seeing these guys, whether it was while they were just happened to be doing a tattoo or this, and then not knowing that how relevant they were to every single person.
Yeah.
You know, and then even seeing scenes from movies where you find out that same guy is the guy in the movie doing it too. And
yeah, I mean, he was just doing his thing and it was there. So it's crazy. You got to watch it to understand. And I think it's interesting. I don't know anything about these music people. I do, but not really. And
you don't have to be a fan.
Have to know. It's just interesting to see the story because it was so pivotal to what made LA culture LA culture.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important. It's a lesson in some history, and you're gonna like it and go watch it.
And you don't have to be a fan of hip hop or any of that stuff, because it's not about that. There's a lot of it there because that's what they were kind of deep into and on tour with everybody. And these guys were like superstars. They were kind of superstars nobody knew about.
Yeah.
In the world, outside of the world of LA, unless you were kind of on the inside with these stars.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Anyways, you should check it out. It's available on Netflix, and you're not doing anything.
Yeah. So
you should watch it. It's interesting.
It is.
All right.
The next one was a movie that actually got a theatrical release, but it did very short run for some reason. And I think this was prior to all the Corona. Before all that. And it's got this insanely good cast. So I'm baffled to why it didn't get a bigger release. But it's a movie called The Last Full Measure. And it stars Sebastian Stan, that most people would know as Winter Soldier. William Hurt, who is General Ross from Avengers and the Hulk, whatever. Samuel L. Jackson, who's Nick Fury, obviously. Ed Harris is in it. Christopher Plummer is in it. There was someone else, and I don't remember the other person's name. Anyway,
it's a really good movie. Those are the main people.
Yeah, those are kind of the main.
And if their boss was correct.
Yes, if you look at them, as we talked about this, talking about the night clerk and how it's a similar photo again with all their faces, right?
But the names
these don't line up. In this one, their names lined up.
Their names match each picture.
So they already got mad props right off the gate.
You want the names to match the person.
So anyway, so the story is about it's inspired by a true story. It's not the exact story per. If you don't know this, if it says inspired, that usually means there's some liberties. If it's based, it's usually try to close to the story. But it's inspired by this specific battle in Vietnam that went horribly wrong.
Yes, Operation something.
I don't remember. Anyway, it's now I don't remember what the exact time period at the time. But and they're trying to get the Medal of Honor for this guy that died.
Yes.
And so all these older guys in the movie play the various veterans from the Vietnam battle or connection somehow. And then Sebastian Stan is the guy that works for the government who is doing the investigation that doesn't really want to be doing this. He thinks it's a waste of time.
Yeah. He didn't want, I mean, Winter Soldier was just more concerned at that time with his career, and he was up for a really good job as assistant secretary, whatever.
Well, and he had prepared interview thing, and he had spent all this time preparing it, and then they're like, okay, well, you need to go do this. And it was really a busy task. They weren't really trying to keep him from doing anything, and they didn't really care about the situation. It was really just go deal with this and shut these people up.
Well, and later on you kind of find out why, but there's stuff that happened.
So you knew, I knew a little bit because I had watched about half of a trailer back when the movie came out in the theaters.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, rare occasion that I didn't finish the trailer. I don't know why. But I remember knowing who the cast was, so I wanted to see the movie. But that was my extent of it. You knew nothing about it.
I knew nothing. I thought it was about music because it's called The Last Full Measure. So I was like, oh, it's about a music thing. Because I had not seen any pictures, anything about it.
And I told you that it was about the
music. I didn't pay attention to you like normal because we're married and that's what wives do. They don't listen. So I thought it was about
hold on, y'all need to hear this because we have this argument. She's part of this group thing with her work. What's it called?
I'm doing
like a leadership, whatever.
Yeah, it's a different.
And what is one of the things that said you needed to work on?
I need to work on my active listening skills because I don't listen. I pretend to listen, or I'm already thinking about a response instead of listening.
So everybody that knows her is shaking their head right now.
They're all my friends shaking their head. Let's go see comments. Are y'all shaking your head?
Yes, of course they are. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, so I had no idea what this is about. I didn't even know Winter Soldier was in it. I don't like the character of Winter Soldier, and so that's my first memory of him.
He's awesome.
And so he's in this movie, and actually, it's a very good movie, and it's so inspired. But it's basically takes this guy like 30-something years, or the people in his group have been working for 30-something years to get this guy a Medal of Honor.
And what I found interesting about the story is it's told in two platforms. You have the current time period that they're trying to get the medal thing done and the interviewing of the people and the finding and putting the story together. And then you also have, as they're telling the stories, it flashing back to the actual battle and the kind of the bloody war part of it. And it's pretty bloody.
It is.
And it's action heavy, but it's not the kind of action is exciting. It's more kind of to show you how horrible it was. But what I found interesting about the movie as a whole is while the focus is about getting this guy his medal and his recognition that he's due, it's really about how this war has affected everybody.
That's the interesting thing to me. So the medal was kind of the story, but it wasn't. It was about each individual because as Winter Soldier, what's his name?
Sebastian Stan.
Sebastian.
I even said it at the beginning.
Well, I just call him Winter Soldier. Goes and now starts to interview all of these people. It starts bringing up all the memories for them.
Yeah.
And it's just horrible. And so when we were watching the movie, I'm like, war is just not okay for anyone involved.
Well, it's interesting because they also have it set up to where, and whether this is really what happened with all the people or not, but the way it's designed for the story is each one has a different takeaway from the war. You know, there's one guy who's still very much, he's okay with his life and he's okay, but he's still he's not a soldier anymore, but he still kind of acts like one. There's another guy he's clearly living his life, but the
first guy was like, oh, I'm fine, but because he really wasn't dealing with it.
Yeah. There's another guy who is like Samuel L. Jackson's character. His character is, he's got the grandkids or his kids or whatever, and he's seemingly living a great life, but he's also dealing with the PTSD and
he's feeling the blame, I think, of everything that happened,
the nightmares, and then there's another guy who's just off the rails.
He's
played by the late great Peter Fonda, who I thought had one of the best performances of the movie because
he's crazy.
Yeah, he has completely lost his mind, and he's trying really hard to hold it together, but he's still kind of in the war.
Yeah, and the lady that's with him is like, he sleeps during the day because he can't stand to sleep at night because he feels like there's something coming to get him. And I'm like, so that's why this movie was just like, oh my gosh, this is not okay for anyone to be in a war. And I feel bad, I guess, for people. I don't know. I'm torn because I know people want to serve their country, so people voluntarily like, yes, this is what I want to do, but that's not cool.
Well, I think one of the, and it talks about how one of the guys went back because he came in and then he realized he wasn't really welcome because, you know, everybody knows that after the Vietnam War, the soldiers a lot of them were spit on and disgraced for the war itself. And so he'd come back, he tells a story about a fight he got into and everything else, and just felt, I'm more comfortable being at war. And he re-enlisted, even though he'd been shot, 5-6 times.
Yeah.
He went back because he didn't know what else to do.
And I've known people like that too, who couldn't live like normal life. And then there's one guy who actually just stayed there, and he in Vietnam or wherever, and he just couldn't come back. So he lived there for the rest of his life, and he goes to go see it. I mean,
before the final act of the movie, the final act of the movie is genius, but prior to that, there's two of the most powerful scenes in the movie, and they're not really spoilers, but I'm going to tell you because one of them involves, and I won't say which characters, but one of them involves just a simple phone call.
Yes.
And a guy calling because he's trying to call. He wants to apologize to who he's calling to,
maybe.
And he never says anything. And the person answers the phone and says, "You don't have to say anything," or whatever it is okay. And then when they hang up, the guy's wife is like, what did he say? And he's like, he never says anything. And he knows who's calling him. And that means that's probably been going on for 30 years.
Yes, it's the trauma.
And it's like middle of the night. It's not like a daytime.
And he's like, it's okay. And I'm like,
but the way it's shot was so smart because the guy that tells him it's okay and that's on the phone isn't emotional about it. And he just goes back to sleep because this is normal. Where the other person's kind of losing it.
This kind of trauma is normal for someone is not okay.
And then the other one to me is involving the guy that stayed in Vietnam. There's a sequence where he takes, while Sebastian Stan's interviewing him, he takes him back to the exact spot where that war had taken place. And then he just says, just be quiet and listen. And it's peaceful, there's butterflies, and visually it's a beautiful shot. But as he's sitting there listening, they didn't do the thing where they could have started playing the war sounds and stuff. They just left it silent and let him listen. And, you can see, even though he was too young to really understand and be there.
But he's been talking to all these people.
He's now seeing everything happening in his mind right where he stood and knows that this person died here and there was blood here and their brains over here.
So crazy.
And he breaks down.
Yeah.
And that's a big turning point in the whole movie.
Yeah, because he really wasn't interested in this. And then finally you see that he's like, okay, I get it. I know why this guy deserves the Medal of Honor. And then throughout the story development here, we find out a lot of this bull is actually political. Awarding people medals of honor, presidents or whoever do it because they want to look good.
Yep.
Or they found somebody like, hey, let's give this guy. And then there's people who are actually blocking people from getting medals because it's a political thing. How is this a political thing? I don't get that.
Well, in this case, it was because some shady things happened in the battle.
Well, Vietnam itself, there were some shady things.
Yeah, but in this case, this wasn't a shady thing from a standpoint of somebody planned something. Some things went wrong by accident, and so what they did is they covered their ass so that this person who was in charge of it or didn't handle it doesn't look bad. That's what it boils down to.
Okay.
And when they're dealing with the actual finally getting somewhere with this medal idea, one of the people that he's talking to is this guy who was directly involved with it. And, his right-hand man is saying, you need to be quiet about this because this can make up your political and your votes. But his soldier side of him is like, people look at it, don't always remember us for what the good we do. They look at the bad things we didn't do, or the good things we didn't do kind of thing. And it kind of changed things. But the last act of the film, to me, I was really surprised because it twisted. There's a moment in the film that, I could technically say it, but because you could look it up. But anyway, I'm not going to say what happens. But there's a moment that is so much bigger than what the movie's about earlier. You know what I mean? Because you get to that point, and then it's almost like this one whole mission. This was like the last mission all these guys were on. Mm-hmm. And their whole purpose of their mission was not only redemption for themselves that they didn't even know they were on, but it was showing them how important they were and showing them how to react. But not just them. There was a whole bigger thing to it that I didn't really expect to happen.
Yeah.
That I thought was great.
And I was over here crying.
She was ugly crying. She wasn't just, she wasn't movie, a puppy crying with tears. I looked at her and I'm like, I'm married to that.
No, guys,
it was an ugly cry.
I am all about the military and all that. And growing up, my dad worked at the Air Force Base. So we would go to the base and see all these soldiers. And I'm like, and when I graduated high school, I wanted to join the Army and my mom wouldn't let me.
Because why?
Because I was too little and I would get hurt.
Why wouldn't she let you be a bus driver?
Because I was too little and I would get hurt.
Why didn't she want you to take karate?
Oh, because I was too little and I would get hurt.
I'm seeing a pattern.
Police officer, fireman. I wanted to help people. I've always wanted to be in some sort of public service, obviously. And my mom was like, no.
Didn't you want to be a school teacher as well?
I wanted to be a
music teacher.
A music teacher.
And were you too small to get hurt?
No, my mom's like, teachers don't make no money. Which is true. I'm sorry, guys.
I know that. I know, but it's
most
funny.
Most of our friends are teachers.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. It's like you're either too small, you'll get hurt to do in this career, but you're not going to make enough money. She really put you in a hole where you weren't going to be able to do nothing.
She wanted me to have a job where I made a lot of money, so it was doctor, lawyer, accounting, something. I can't. But what?
I'm not going to lie. This is one of the few things me and your mother agree on. I need you with a job that makes a lot of money to take care of me.
I get it, but anyway,
this is really creeping me out over here.
Oh, I thought you had put the
the camera shifted where he's predominantly in the screen, and I had fixed it earlier, so I had his helmet back on, and then right before the show came in, it was falling again. So apparently, I didn't fix it very well, and so I didn't think it was going to be that prominent. But it's just creeping me out. Anyways,
so I am super all about the military. I support what they do. I understand sometimes they get into situations that are not their fault, like with wars and things. They're really legitimately wanting to serve their country. And we drag them through a bunch of BS and then don't properly take care of them when they come back. They don't get paid enough. They don't get enough medical health care. They should get housing. I mean, they should get all that stuff even when they're done.
Oh, I agree with that.
At least something better than what they get.
I think they should be the way that most of the Senate and the Congress and all them are, where they're the ones making millions of dollars for life, and presidents, like the things they give presidents where they're whatever salary for life or protection. That's what the military should
get, not those people. Honestly, at this point, I think military service should be required to be president.
I agree with that.
I mean, not like Mr. Flatfoot who ran away. Or whatever, his bunions were hurting. There's something with.
Are we talking about Deion Sanders?
No. About orange head. Wasn't it his feet that he complained about?
Bone spurs or something.
Whatever.
I don't know.
Come on. I wore glasses. I couldn't go. Whatever, dude.
I wanted to join the Air Force when I was a kid.
Did you?
And then I was all gung ho because I wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah.
And I was all gung ho. I was into planes and I was researching when I was a teenager, almost out of high school. And then at the time, I think they changed it, but I may not. So if anybody knows, you can tell me. I'm too old now, but. At the time, I started researching and found out if you wore glasses, you couldn't be a pilot. And so I said, ugh. So I was like, it was very much like my art career initially. Is like, well, if I can't do that, I'm not doing it. I had a
you could have done something else.
Well, it's just like I kind of screwed myself in the art world too, because I was given kind of a partial job with Marvel, but I didn't want to do that book because I was too stupid. So I walked away from it, and then.
Anyway, the point of this movie was I was just crying and crying. So bring your tissues. Well, because I was trying not to cry.
Oh, but she does this thing. I wish y'all could see it. She's not blubbering. Oh, God. It's not or anything like that. It's the face she makes. It's this thing. She goes. And I think she does it. She does it to.
I don't want to ugly cry.
She's trying to cry. But try to be funny about her cry, so it doesn't look like. It looks like she's not being ugly cry on purpose, but in reality, she makes her ugly cry worse.
I'm just going to start crying normal. This movie got me. It got me in the one feeling I have left for the military.
And then she gets all confrontational. If I say, "Are you crying?" You'll be like, "Yes."
Why wouldn't I cry? This movie was so touching, you guys. It's based on the actual real story of this person.
Yeah.
And then I'm reading there, it took 20 years just to make the movie about the story that took 30 years to get the medal. It's so insane. Anyways, you should watch it.
It comes out on Blu-ray and DVD on Tuesday this week. So even though I know you're like, well, how am I going to rent it? I'm quarantined. Well, it means it's probably on pay-per-view. You could probably go to Redbox. There's a lot of options you can get. You can check it out. I'm assuming it's going to be on Amazon and Apple TV and all those for rent.
You should watch it, guys. It's really good.
It is really good.
It's a movie.
It was way better than I thought it was going to be. Like, not that I thought it was going to be bad with that cast.
I had no idea what it was about.
That's what we were going to walk into.
I had no idea.
So anyway, the next movie we're going to talk about is one that I believe I did a little quick thing about it at one point. But again, like last time, you finally got to watch something. So we're going to talk about it again.
Finally.
And it's one of my favorite franchises of all times. No, there are no lightsabers in this. What are we discussing there?
We are talking about Ip Man 4.
The finale. Now, before we hear your opinion about it, we're going to do a quick dive into all the Ip Man films. Now, she hasn't seen Master Z, which is a spin-off film. Okay. So we're not going to talk about that one.
I know about it.
Yeah, so we are going to dive first into the Ip Man Legacy, this is the trilogy series they put out of the first 3 films. It was supposed to only be one film.
Yes.
And it did really well, made a second one. Well, then there was a separate Ip Man movie made So Donnie Yen at the time says, I will not make 3 because somebody else is now making that movie, and he didn't want to just keep it looking like they're just milking it.
Yeah.
Whatever reason they talked him into it, he did 3. He finally made it. We thought that was it.
Yeah.
And then now years later, they came together and they made another one, which is legitimately the final one in it. It's in not only is in the title, it's the finale of the story itself.
It is. It wraps up our story.
So if you don't know who Ip Man is, first of all, what's your problem?
What?
Ip Man is Bruce Lee's instructor, Wing Chun, but he was such a bigger entity in Chinese culture.
Such a big deal.
Of not only martial arts, but kind of for the people, thing like this. And then his son Ip Ching still had passed on. I believe he's still alive. Either that or he just died. One of the two, but I think he's 90-something years old. He continued on the Wing Chun, and now there's, the massive Wing Chun everywhere. So anyway, just for the peoples here, when you saw the first film, did he die?
He just died this year.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Ip Ching.
So anyway,
poor Ching. Well, that makes me sad.
Why? I told you I thought he died just recently.
Okay, well, that was his son, and it's a very big deal.
He died in January of this year.
Okay. Sorry.
All right, so we've kind of followed this trilogy together.
Yeah, we have. It's actually been really interesting.
In the last, we only got to see the third one in the theater together, which started dealing with wife. So why don't you give me before we talk about the fourth one, and I know we didn't get a chance to revisit all of them recently, I have, but I know you haven't. So kind of what is your feeling of the original trilogy as a whole before we get into the new one?
I loved these movies, and I liked seeing just the story develop, because obviously you know way more about these things than I do, but throughout your martial arts history. But it's interesting because to me, even though it's very central to the Chinese people, Chinese martial arts, their culture, their people, I think it's a little bit of a universal story in the area of being mistreated because you're from a certain group or a class or whatever. So that on a different level speaks to me, as a brown person in this country, a person of brown skin, wherever that may be, which, nowadays it's not just being black, it's being Hispanic or Arab or from Asia. I mean, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Well, now it's interesting as we're watching this new one, the exact same thing is happening to Chinese people because of the coronavirus, even though they have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, we were talking about because
so dumb.
The new one, so to break down the film series, if you've never seen it,
crazy.
The first film, Ip Man is already established as this well-respected, wealthy martial arts master, whatever. And then the Japanese invade and occupy China, basically makes everybody poor, takes everything. So it's about them struggling to survive, him having to fight up against the Japanese. And again, all these movies are embellished to make they take actual historical events and then they embellish it to make kind of an action movie. But they all of them have kind of a heart to them. The second one is kind of him kind of rebuilding his life and his family, starting his school, trying to kind of do something, reestablish himself. And of course, he's got another, I believe it's the English that he's fighting in the second one.
Yeah.
Dealing with that. Then the third one, he shifts into dealing with, the third one was interesting because that one got a lot of grief from people, I believe, initially, because people felt the third one was the weakest, which I really liked the third one.
That was so much more emotional.
That one focused more on his relationship with his wife and her sickness, and you've got it's more about his family.
Yeah,
like all the movies have been about his family, and even the new one's about his family.
Yeah,
but it was not just fight scene. Although there's a ton of them there.
Yeah,
it was involving some criminal organizations and his son being kidnapped and these, and I don't know if any of that actually happened, but and that's where he introduced Master Z in the third movie, which is the final fight they have, which mirrors the opening of the original film where the two guys fight in private and you're not supposed to know who won, and that starts all the problems because somebody said something. And then that's what this film comes out of that she hasn't seen, which is Master Z, Ip Man Legacy, which is Mac Zhang, who played Master Z in Ip Man 3, and they fight. This movie takes place after that of what happens after he lost the fight to Ip Man. But you got Dave Bautista and Tony Jaa, and Michelle Yeoh. I forgot. Yeah.
Oh well, I mean, I love her.
We'll have to watch that so you'll see it.
Look and she's actually fighting, right?
Yeah.
It's not like that other movie where you have Michelle Yeoh and she doesn't fight. That's dumb.
I think it's Yao, but whatever. I've been calling her Yeoh for years.
Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, but no, but
I apologize.
She's getting to be an older woman, and
I know, but I want her to fight in Star Trek too.
Anyway, so now that leads us back into Ip Man 4. His wife is gone. This is probably years later because his son's grown.
He's big,
like a teenager,
he was a little boy.
Yeah,
and it's not actually 100% true to like his story because I think he had like 4 kids or 5 kids.
Yeah. He has a few of them.
He had a few, but we're focusing on Ching.
Yeah.
So just go with us.
Yeah. So like I said, this is it's more of a homage to the man.
Yeah. It's
inspired by his life without being the same exact.
It's
story.
Not exact.
So you get past all that first, and then you realize, okay,
but the main points of the story are true.
Yeah, some of the things he went through, and the people he rose up against and had to fight against. And so, one of the great things I love that there was just a small piece of it in Ip Man 3 was the introduction of Bruce Lee.
Yes.
And they actually introduced Bruce Lee twice in the series.
Yeah.
I believe it's in Ip Man 1, or maybe it's in 2.
I think it's in 2 at the end.
I don't remember where he shows up.
Right? He's like, ah.
Well, no, there's the end of 3 or the beginning of 3. Maybe it's the end of 3, beginning of 2. End of 2, beginning of 3. Where he shows up, and that's where he wants to teach you because you're not ready yet, and go away.
He's like, hey, I want you to teach. Yeah.
But there's another moment where there's a young boy who does, and he goes, it's like, what's your name? I think it's in the first one. And he's like, Bruce. And that was kind of because it was only supposed to be one movie.
Right.
And then, but the cool part is the 4th movie predominantly takes place in San Francisco, where we now have Bruce Lee at the All-American Classic, which is the Ed Parker Classic, which they don't say that in the movie, but that's where he did his demonstration with the one-inch punch. And he was trying to tell everybody about Jeet Kune Do is what he was actually pushing.
Right.
That was his new style, which if you've seen Dragging the Bruce Lee story, which you have.
Love that
That's
movie.
The one after he wrote all the stuff in his bed from breaking his back that he actually broke in a motorcycle accident, not in a fight.
Yeah.
But
it's okay, but it's more dramatic.
Yeah. That's the tournament that he's in that he's then discovered for Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the Ed Parker Classic is and in that movie Ed Parker is played by his son, not Bruce Lee's son, Ed Parker's son. Anyway, so now we're here, and the story is his son's getting in trouble, so he's coming to San Francisco to not only see Bruce, but to try to find primarily to try to find a school for his son to go to. But we're in the 50s, 60s, and there's all the prejudice against the Asians, and so being an immigrant coming in, you have to have a letter of recommendation for somebody prominent to go to the school, and so of course that's going to mean shenanigans. So I'd already seen it. This is like my 3rd time seeing it.
Oh, wow.
Because I watched it way back when they was still in the theaters. Then I saw it after that, and then I watched it with you again today. Tell me your thoughts, ma'am. Now that you got this coming off the 3rd ones, you got the 4th movie in the series.
Well, the 3rd one was so sad to me because of his wife and her illness and all that happens. And so then we start this one, and he's older and having problems too. And then he's having problems with his son. And immediately I'm like, man, these people need some counseling because they have not dealt with her passing.
Well, and you also remember the earlier films, there was always this ongoing argument with her and him as well about all you care about is Kung Fu.
Yeah.
And then his son was like, all you care about is Kung Fu, but you won't teach me.
Yeah.
Because he wanted his son to get an education and do this. He
wanted him to be better or different, and not have to struggle, which I think that's what most parents want for your kids is them to do a little bit better.
I wanted mine to be worse than me. I wanted to be better than them.
I want them to do not struggle as hard, but still not be as well off as we are. I'm being realistic. No, but at the end of 3, they do at the end kind of a little montage. But remember at the end of 3, she would listen to him do the dummy, and she got
the last scene of that, and she tells him, "Can you please go train one last time?" Because she wanted to hear it.
She wanted to hear the.
Yeah, because she always knew that it was okay if she heard his wooden dummy.
Yeah, that everything was okay.
And did you Kent? There's a hint in that sequence in this movie of when he calls the son at that last time he talks to him, or the last phone call he makes while he's still in America, he calls back and forth. That one time he calls him and his son refuses to talk to him,
but
he hears the wooden dummy in the background.
Yeah. And
I was about to cry again?
No, I did cry in this movie too, but I was like, I wonder if he's listening thinking, no, that was wrong. Like with the, I don't know, but yeah, I could hear him, like you heard it. And I think that's probably the moment when you realize, like, okay, this kid really wants to learn.
Yeah.
So anywho, but this movie is so good. And I think you do need to see the other ones.
You do.
Please watch the other movie. Don't watch number 4 without watching 1, 2, and 3.
And if I'm not mistaken, 1, 2, 3, and Master Z are all on Netflix.
Oh, great.
I believe
there you go. Go watch them.
And I don't know if 4 is yet. I don't think it is. I don't think it comes up
this movie, now we're dealing with the racism of the white people towards Chinese people in the 60s. And, you know, Chinatown's been established and they're all there, but now people are like, oh, they need to stay in Chinatown.
Well, what I find funny about that too, and I get it, but you also get to see kind of Chinese on Chinese issues because they don't like the whole idea of Bruce Lee trying to spread Chinese martial arts. He saw it as a way to spread their culture and to expound and make people more understand what something that he loved and was passionate about. But those people saw it as you're betraying our culture and you're giving away our secrets to the white man. And but I found it interesting that they wanted to be in America, but they wanted to be Chinese in America. Like their whole Chinatown setup was so they were in China.
Yeah.
And if you did anything outside of that, it was very much like a no-no. In my mind, I'm like, well, then why are you here? You know, why do you want to be here if you don't want to be here? Now, I get having your culture, and that's
you don't want to lose your culture, but at some point you have to kind of.
But I think that was part of the story because there's a moment where the guy, there's some other main character who does realize that.
He's like,
he goes, we can't keep conforming to them. We have to stand up.
Yeah.
If we want to be powerful Chinese people in our culture and Chinatown and all this stuff, we have to still stand up and say, look, we're also Americans and you have to accept us.
And I think that's kind of the thing that we go through again. Like even now, like things don't change that much. Like you deserve and have the right to have your own culture and do your own thing, but still be American. And I don't understand why people don't see that or understand that. Maybe because they lack
what's
culture.
Interesting about the whole
some people in this country lack culture.
Well, what's interesting about all that whole thing with the cultures and stuff is always find it interesting is a lot of the arguments, obviously more white people than anybody else, but a lot of the arguments of if you want to come here, that's fine, but you need to do it the proper way and legal way.
No, I get that.
But then when people do that, it's still not enough.
Oh, it's never
enough.
It's
like go home just because if I look at you, go back where you came from. They don't care that you were born here.
Yeah, I was born here.
That you already did everything America says. That doesn't seem to be enough anymore, which is ridiculous because you can't have it both ways. Now, if you're going to be like, I almost have a really weird, sad respect for the people that just hate across the board because at least they're consistent.
Yeah,
with their stupid views, you know. But for somebody to say, if you want to be here, you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to follow this, and then you follow it, and you still attack them.
Yeah, it's like it's never.
That just makes you stupid.
Yeah, it's never good enough.
Anyway,
I get it. I mean, we're not going to solve immigration reform right now, but I do agree. People need to come legally, follow the process. But then my thing that I've always said, and where it's jacked up, is if you let people in and say you have 3 months. Then it's your fault for not following up in 3 months to make sure they left. But now you want to complain that suddenly they've been here for 10 years. Well, too bad. Don't be dumb.
Yeah.
You have a thing called a computer and the internet, and you scan passports when people come in so you can track them.
Well, and then going back to this movie, of course, you have to have the
political statement.
You have to have the martial arts fighting aspect to this movie.
Fights
and of course, this time around, we got Chris Collins, who most of you don't know who he is. I didn't know who he was until I saw this movie. I'd seen him before, and then I got to interview him, which you can check out at
HollywoodMatrimony.com.
Very interesting story. He's a great martial artist. I follow him on Instagram now as well. Watch some of his training and stuff. He's a really good guy. But it's him. Then you also have Scott Adkins. I know
who you love.
I do love Scott Adkins. And it makes me excited because going through this series is the other part that's been really cool.
Yeah.
The first film, I know a lot of the Asian actors by face. I didn't know a lot about names, but so I knew we were getting a lot of great fights. In the second movie, you added Sammo Hung to it, so
that was so crazy with
fighting on the table. And in the third one, you threw in Mike Tyson, and Max Zing. And now we got Scott Adkins here. And so that automatically adds a new element. And part of that is there's a Chinese soldier in the Marines, and he wants to introduce Wing Chun, Chinese martial arts of some sort, to the military.
Yeah, for hand-to-hand combat.
Because they're teaching Japanese karate already. And I don't think they ever mention it as Japanese karate.
They just say
karate, trying to say American karate, but the reality of it is karate is from Japan.
Karate's not American.
So it almost mirrors the Japanese occupation all over again. You know what I mean? Everything from the first movie almost happens
again
in the U.S. Unless we're going to kill all of your people and starve you to death.
Yeah, that part didn't happen.
But there's that racist element, and Scott Adkins plays this very old school, cliched drill sergeant.
Yeah,
maggot, you know.
He did really good in this role, actually. And you know what? His fighting's always been great, but his acting has gotten much better.
Oh yeah,
as he goes.
Well, he's starting to carry a lot of movies now too.
Yeah,
like,
so
he did a movie called Avengement that you should check out.
Okay, I'm hopeful he's going to start doing some leading stuff and bigger.
He was in Doctor Strange.
Oh, that's true. I want him to get like that breakout thing that gets him out there because he's good.
Well, he was actually up for Batman at one point.
Oh, he would be good. He's nice and tall.
He is, and he's got the look. He's got the jaw. He's built. He can fight, but that didn't happen. Instead, it went to Robert Pattinson. Anyway,
can you imagine? Let's do a side-by-side photo of those two people.
No, he wasn't up for that Batman role. He was actually up for the Christian Bale one.
On but Batman still, Begins put them together.
Yeah. But in Christian Bale's defense, he was ripped. He wasn't Scott Adkins ripped.
He's that person though. Remember, like who's gonna die first?
Yeah.
He's Matthew McConaughey, or
there's only one other Hollywood person that I can honestly say is as detail ripped as Scott Adkins, and it's Michael Jai White.
Really?
Yeah, because even Schwarzenegger. Yeah, because it's a different look, and what I'm talking about is I'm not talking about the fact that Van Damme and all them weren't ripped, but if you look at them, they're perfect proportion. They look like action figures. I'll have to show you a picture, but it's insane looking at those two guys. That's like they can't be real. You know what I mean? Yet
that's a lot of work too. By the way.
Anyway.
Anywho, so the movie is awesome. You need to watch it. The fight scenes are good. It's
my favorite parts.
Get you in the feels.
My favorite parts is when she gets excitable about any kind of fight scene. She starts yelling at the TV. Her ethnic side comes out, and she starts yelling at the screen.
I was like, ooh.
So there's a scene where Ip Man is fighting Chris Collins, the karate guy, and he starts his chain punch. You know, yes. And she's like, "Oh yeah." She goes, and then she yells out, "That's what I do, the punching bag."
I did the other day when we were working out.
We were training, and I was on the recumbent bike because we in between our weight training stuff we do cardio and we mix between the bag and the recumbent bike. And I'm on the bike doing my thing, and she's like, the bike is sitting here, she's right here on the bag, so I can watch her doing her thing, and she's hitting it, she's going to town, and she's kicking and doing whatever, and all of a sudden she's going. I said, "What are you doing?" Because I couldn't see her hands. And she goes, "I'm giving it to Ip Man," and she's doing chain punches. But it's just funny to watch because she's
not very good.
Because she's adorable.
Anyways, I love this movie, and then I love Donnie Yen. He just seems like a very nice person, but I don't want to fight him because that just seems scary. And yeah, he seems really good and so smart too, because you need to watch all the behind the scenes stuff. And I loved all the behind the scenes, and they were talking, and he's like, "Yeah, this suddenly just took 10 years of my life that I wasn't expecting, you know, because it was just one movie." But then you see how hard he is working with the director on the details, and it's a really good director. It's what's his name? So he knows what he's talking about.
I don't think Yu Wen-ping directed this one.
Did he not?
I think he just did the fight choreography.
Oh my gosh! But they're talking about the fights, and Donnie Yen's like, no, because then why would my body go this way if I go? You know, like they're thinking the way you do, like just with. Like how your body moves. Like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would you be doing this if your body's going? I mean, so it's just so smart. And he seems very cool and very nice. And the movie's really good and emotional. And the fight scenes are good. But what they were saying in that behind the scenes thing was we weren't just going to throw in fights to have a fight. We know that's what you want to see, but it has to make sense for the story. And that's what I like about all these movies. It makes sense.
And they aren't there just to see a fight, but they have interwoven them into the story in a way. Like in the very first movie, the first fight you see is this random guy who just comes and challenges Ip Man That's how the movie starts.
There's always those.
Ip Man's working the Wing Chun dummy, and then this guy just shows up. I challenge you, because it was this whole thing back in the days. And what's crazy is in the world of capoeira, this is still going on.
This happened to you with that one kid, a teenage kid.
I've had a few of those in my day.
People just randomly show up.
But they'd have other schools challenged because they wanted to show if you could beat the master, this guy, then your school had more credibility and more people would want to come train with you. That's kind of how it worked back then. And they were essentially like gangs, if you would, but there was a respect factor. If one master beat the other master, then they had respect for each other, and I also like the element of being in the U.S. difference of the Chinese people in this one is when Ip Man shows up and he's meeting the council, even though they're still Kung Fu master guys, they're a benevolent Chinese council to kind of control all of Chinatown, if you would. Not gangsters, but they were kind of held the traditions and whatnot. And as they're introducing them all, he's, given this thing, where you see in all the original movies, everybody does it.
Yeah.
Because they all have respect.
There's so much respect.
And here he's doing it, and every one of them are just looking at him, sitting here drinking their teas.
They've become Americanized.
Yeah, they're very kind of, and he does it for all 10 people and very respectful. But in that original movie, the guy shows up, and then he's like, look, I'll fight you, but let's do it privately because I don't want to, no matter what happens, I don't want it to look bad on your students or my students. And there's that respect level. And he finished the fight, and it's the guy, I believe that's the guy that's in this movie.
In this movie, yeah, it is.
Because every time he fights a guy, the guy makes an excuse of why he lost.
Yes.
Oh, the stage was too small, or I fell down, my shoe was untied or whatever.
He's that guy.
Yeah, so he shows back up.
Yeah, he's in this one too. I liked this movie, and yeah, we've lost the respect factor, we've lost the tradition, and I wish all that would come back. So
yeah, and even again, if you're not a martial arts fan, it doesn't matter. They're very
they're very good. It's not about that. It's about the people and their lives.
But the fights are badass.
And history, and I think it's important. Remember, history will repeat itself if you don't take notes.
And while we were watching it, I looked over and I said, "It's sad how relevant this movie is right now."
About people
with the racism
Chinese
part of it.
People and the stupid thing is people are so dumb, they think everybody's Chinese and they don't realize there's like a gazillion different countries in Asia, or provinces or whatever, and not everybody's Chinese.
Well, and seeing the same
just like not everybody's Mexican.
I know this isn't totally related, but it is. But it's the same thing with people that are cast in films and stuff. When people start getting mad about this person should have been cast, an Asian should have been cast, or African American or whatever, but they don't do the research to see if those people actually are. So like for instance, this is a silly one, but when Olivia Munn was cast as Psylocke, Psylocke's original character was British. Then when she changed, they revamped her. She became Asian. They're like, oh, they cast Olivia Munn. She's Asian. She's not full Asian, but she's part. So it's like they're not taking jobs away from. There are, but they're not regularly doing that. There are people that are cast that are those ethnicities. Keanu Reeves is Asian.
Yeah, he is.
And people don't like to see that. They like to complain about it.
Isn't Keanu a little bit everything though?
No, he's Keanu.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter what Keanu is. You're gonna. I think he's
mostly Hawaiian.
Is he?
Or in there somewhere. Anyway, all right. Well, Ip Man 4 is not only going to be available this week on Blu-ray and DVD. I believe it's already available on digital, but we are also still have contests giving away copies of it.
What?
Yeah, we're still giving away copies of it.
Awesome.
So if you haven't seen it yet, the contest will end this week. Make sure you get your entry in. Again, I believe Netflix at one point still had all three of them and Master Z on there to check them out. You don't have to watch Master Z. You can bypass it if you want to skip it all together. I wouldn't, because there's some badass fights in it. But if you just want to watch the Ip Man series, watch 1, 2, and 3, and then 4. They play up as one long movie. They don't play up as individual movies per se.
No, you kind of need to watch the whole thing because it does kind of pick up and keep the story going.
Yeah, you can technically watch the first movie and then not watch the rest of them and still get Ip Man's history, kind of, because in the end credits it kind of tells you what happens. But these movies play together as a group. So if you haven't watched them, or if you've only seen a few of them, go finish checking them out. And I don't know if you're like me or not, but I kind of become a weird zombie drooling guy when the fights are happening because I start focusing in on it. So it's always,
fights are so good.
Well, it's always interesting to me of watching people. I like watching people watch movies because it's like, it's interesting what people connect with, like.
No, I connect with bizarre things.
Yeah, but whether it's something you may cry about or something else somebody just suddenly gets engulfed in, or the thing that suddenly you're not paying attention. Like, to me, something that's so important, I look over you and you're on your computer working because we're working while we're watching a movie, and I'm like, you're not watching. This is very important. And why didn't you not? And to me,
but then I focus on other things.
But when it's a martial arts or a fighting thing, I become this drooling idiot, not because I just want to watch it, because I start analyzing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm watching how people move and this and I don't know if it's every time, because I know you've tried to talk to me while these are happening, and I hear nothing you're saying.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's like I'm zoning out, not just my
ear
problems.
don't listen to me.
Yeah, but I admit to it, not like you. You're like, no, I was listening. All right, moving on. Did you not pull out any quarantine movie this week?
What did I watch this week?
I have no idea what you're doing.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I don't think I watched.
I think you were watching shows this week.
Yeah, I got caught up in my shows. I don't think I watched any movies this week. How is that possible?
Well, that's okay. Goodness. Well, that's enough then. No quarantines. Did you have any theater experiences? Oh.
Yeah, I did. I was in the theater, and there was a dog and a cat in the theater this week. I don't know what they were doing.
The dog will not shut the hell up.
This dog barks so much at the most dumb things. Like a truck
drove by. And it's just been recently.
A truck drove by, and he barks for like 3 minutes. And I don't know why.
And it was one of the few times I was asleep.
And I go and look, and I'm like,
so
look, there's nothing there. It's okay. But no, it's not okay. Anyway, sorry.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't have any quarantine movies. Did you watch anything?
No, I've been watching mostly shows, trying to get caught up on stuff.
TV Tuesday is going to be an exciting one because we got a couple of things to talk about.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Sorry about that. Oh, wait.
There's more.
Hold on. I can tell you about this. Or did I already talk about it? I need to see if there's another. I don't know. It's going to be for next week. Never mind.
Okay.
Because it didn't come out till next week, so I'm going to save it. Yeah. Okay. I didn't forget. I just. All right. So that all you got, madam?
Yeah, hold on.
Pulling yours
up?
Yeah,
you do yours.
Okay, so this week on the Blu-ray and the DVD, we got a lot of stuff happening. Of course, M-Man 4 is coming out. The Last Full Measure is coming out. We also got Like a Boss.
Like a Boss.
With Salma Hayek, Tiffany Haddish.
That movie, I thought it was super funny.
It was okay. The Turning, which I want to see, is coming out.
What's that one?
That's the one where the seemingly crazy children in the mansion, and I've heard mixed reviews. I had somebody told me they thought it was awesome, and I heard somebody else told me they didn't think it was very good. So you never know. Bad Boys for Life.
Bad Boys.
It's in Blu-ray and DVD. And one of my favorite movies of recent is The Gentleman, with Matthew McConaughey and Charlie Hunnam and Hugh Grant and Colin Farrell and Henry Golding. It's a kind of a crime caper kind of thing.
Okay.
It's coming out. So all of those are hitting this week, and a few other random things. So
okay. So release Friday.
You're too far.
Whoa, I'm on
You're living in the past, sister.
Date. Hold on.
We're going into the 20th.
Hold on.
She's not prepared.
I was on the wrong week. Here we go.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that one.
To Netflix. Extraction.
Chris Hemsworth.
It's Hemsworth. Movie. It looks good. We're gonna watch it. Yeah. Streaming online, something called Robert the Bruce.
That's actually technically a sequel, if it's one of to Braveheart.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's kind of an unofficial sequel, but a sequel because the guy that plays Robert the Bruce is the same actor, I believe, that played him in the original movie too.
Oh, okay, cool.
In Braveheart.
All right, another streaming.
Is that streaming or is that?
It says streaming online, so
okay,
we'll find
but
it.
that could streaming could be just digital too. So
oh, okay, we'll see. Another streaming, something called To the Stars. Don't know. We'll find out what that's about. Something else streaming online, Enemy Lines. Don't know what that's about either. And then we have another one, The True History of Kelly Gang.
Is that about Ned Kelly and
Ned Kelly, the Kelly Gang.
You don't know who Ned Kelly is.
But Russell Crowe's in it.
Yeah. Do you know who Ned Kelly is?
I don't. Travis Fimmel. He's good. Charlie Hunnam. Yeah. So we'll watch it. I think it'll be good.
It's like a Western-ish
type.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening. So
have you never seen the movie Ned Kelly with
No.
Is that the one?
I don't even know what you're saying, so no. I haven't. I'm so sorry.
Is Ned Kelly the one with Mick Jagger?
He can't get no satisfaction.
Is it Liam Neeson?
Probably Liam Neeson, baby.
No,
because Mick Jagger do something.
Because Mick Jagger did a lot of things.
Did he?
Yes.
I only know he does this. He's got the move.
Yep. Boom. 1970. Ned Kelly. Mick Jagger.
Oh wow! I had no idea he was an actor.
He did a lot of stuff, but
Where have I been?
there's also a Ned Kelly movie from 2003 with Heath Ledger and Orlando Bloom.
Oh, okay. That's what I'm thinking about. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Hollywood Matrimony Live. Make sure you check us out next week. It's going to be awesome. Don't forget our website, hollywoodmatrimony.com. Go to the contest button. Check out the page. This poor man works night and day on that thing.
And we have been a little bit slow lately, not just because there hasn't been movies here, but I've had a ton of art deadlines. So I finally got all those caught up until the next one shows up here this week, I'm assuming. So I've been trying to get new stuff added to it.
How?
But tomorrow I am be doing Martial Arts Movie Monday. We were going to do the Ip Man stuff for Martial Arts Movie Monday, which obviously would make more sense. Yeah. But I already done an episode about the Ip Man franchise or series. I don't know if I actually talked about Ip Man 4 at the time, but I decided instead I'm going to do a quick little recap because she has to go to work on Mondays actually to the office. So instead of waiting until late, I'm going to do a quick recap of Ip Man 4 because I'm going to segue into another Donnie Yen film to talk about that I really just wanted to watch. So that's pick up the show.
There you go.
So that'll be tomorrow, new episode of Martial Arts Movie Monday. Then Tuesday, we'll be back together for Taco Tuesday.
Together.
I mean,
Taco Tuesday.
For TV Tuesdays. So we have a bunch of stuff to talk about. And then this weekend, Hollywood Matrimony Live for episode 191, I believe it is.
Yes, we're almost.
We'll be talking about Extraction.
We need to have a party when we get to
I'll be talking about Mortal Kombat, Legends, Scorpion's Revenge, a new animated film from Warner Brothers, and all of its bloody glory.
I think we're finally going to watch Dolphin Reef.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Probably a few other things.
A few other things on the Netflix.
We'll see what happens. Oh, we have another movie, the Rhythm Section, we'll be talking about too.
Oh, I'm so excited. It's the Blake Lively
yes, that's
movie.
This is, if you don't know, this is how she drives movies. She goes, we need to watch that movie. That could be like thousands of movies, and I have no idea what she's talking about.
It's Blake Lively.
Yes,
right. Things.
Anyway, so thank you for joining us. We'll be back. Make sure you hit subscribe to the button on this YouTube page here. Go subscribe to our whatever Facebook page. And if the little orb shows up, click it. Watch trailers. Have a good time. We're almost through all this together. I don't think we'll be all quarantined very much longer. But if we are, we're in this together. So just be safe, be happy, be peaceful, and love one another.
If you need toilet paper, let us know, I guess.
Well, don't let us know because I want to.
If you need anyone to talk to, let us know.
That you can do.
I mean, because we don't mind if
you're
having a hard time.
See, Sean mentioned Free Jack with Emilio Estevez and Mick Jagger.
No, I had no idea.
You never seen Free Jack?
No.
Oh my God. Oh my God, I love that. It's a bad movie, but I loved it.
The only thing
I saw that movie in the theaters, and I used to watch it all the time.
Wasn't he in that one movie? It was Emilio Estevez, and then he was in the Breakfast Club. That's the only one.
Are you talking about just Emilio Estevez, or
yeah?
You said, is he in that one movie?
No, he's in that one movie I've seen, and then he's also in Breakfast Club.
He's in a bunch of movies, and he directs a ton of shit.
Oh, that's what I remember him.
We're talking about Mick Jagger, not Emilio Estevez.
Oh, I've never seen anything with Mick Jagger.
Christ.
Except this.
Oh my God. I
gotta go eat dinner. I love y'all.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Peace and love. Peace and love.